Hey, David.
I would
Dave.
David off the jump.
Playoff season, you know.
It is playoff season. We get formal in playoff season.
We always do.
I like that. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast. Reuben, Frank, David Zangaro. A lot to break down today. How you doing? This is fun. I'm excited for the playoffs now.
Yeah, me too. And look, let's be honest. It is a chance for the Eagles to right a lot of wrongs. I'm not super confident in their ability to do it, but they've got the opportunity right in front of them. And it's a team they dominated back in September, and they have good players, and we'll see how it all goes. I'm fascinated by this matchup.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Not a ton of confidence in the Eagles suddenly figuring this out, but it's a playoff game, and it's fun. You know, we get spoiled here a little bit. This has been a really good franchise for a long time. There are a lot of teams that aren't playing this weekend, and I'm not saying you should be like grateful because the way this season ended was awful, but it is fun to have a playoff game.
Yeah, and it's kind of an annual right around here. Mm-hmm. I think since '88, my first full year doing this, the Eagles have been in the playoffs more than any team in the NFL. So I'm used to my seasons extending into January.
Yeah, it is fun. So we'll get into some of the matchups of this particular game. We know the Eagles played them in week 3, but a lot has certainly changed for both teams since then. Some coaching news around the NFL we want to break down. Brian Johnson has an interview potentially coming up, and the All-Pro team is coming out around the corner. But I think we want to start this podcast with just the magnitude of this game, not just for the Eagles season, but it feels like for the franchise in general.
It really does have that feel about it. And I think if the Eagles even if they had lost 5 of their last 6 and played okay competitive football in those games, I wouldn't feel that way. But considering how bad they were in those losses and in the one win during that stretch, yeah, it does feel like a mandate and on Nick and just the whole current state of the franchise, and even Jalen to an extent. I mean, we know Jalen will be here. We don't really know about Nick. I mean, if they lose 27-3, you know, yeah, I mean, you could see Jeff Lurie saying, look, this just isn't working. Normally when a team's made the playoffs 3 years in a row and won 11 games and was in the Super Bowl last year, you're not thinking that way. But these losses have been so catastrophic. And not even Dallas and San Francisco as much. They were lopsided and they got blown out. But for me, it's the one since then. It's Seattle. It's it's the way they played against the Giants, and it's Arizona.
The Matt Patricia games, we'll call them.
The Matt Patricia games. And I don't think that's the only thing. I think there's a lot of factors, but I think that's a big part of it. I think that move obviously backfired on everybody. But those 4 games, because they still had a chance to be the number 1 seed coming out of that Dallas game, as bad as they played in those 2 games. For me, it's the 4 games against lesser teams. I mean, those are all 4 games against non-playoff teams. I think Seattle ended up with a winning record, right? They go 9-8, I think. But it's, I mean, it's 4 games that it's incomprehensible they played as bad as they did. It's insane. So to go into Tampa, it's a chance to either show that was a fluke, not a fluke, but just kind of an anomaly, I guess, or an opportunity to make some very major changes.
Yeah, I think we've already reached the point, unless they go on some kind of miraculous run, that there will be significant changes this offseason. Sure. You know, look, if they get to the Super Bowl, then all bets are off. Like, I think that's pretty unlikely. But yeah, if they
game winning streak.
Yeah, if they do something like that, then yeah, I mean, all this talk that we've done the last few weeks just completely goes out the window.
But it's not going to happen.
Most likely it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And I mean, I think if they beat Tampa, the changes won't be as dramatic. But, you know, if they lose if they lose big, it'll be everybody, I think. If they lose by 27-24, it won't be everybody, but it'll be significant. If they win, we'll see what happens the next week, but if they win, it won't be as much, but there'll still be changes.
Yeah, and I don't think it's like a one-game thing. I don't think you fire coaches based off one game, but if this is like the trend, right, and we've seen these embarrassing losses recently, if you add one of those in the playoffs and you can't right the ship, then yeah, I think you can
can't right what?
The ship.
Oh, ship. Got it.
Trying to get me fired.
No, I thought I misheard you.
Well, you need the right. Yeah. But if you can't do that and you end this season with an embarrassing loss in the playoffs, I mean, yeah, I think, but it's not even just about the game. I really think that if we're talking about some major decisions in the offseason going up to the level of the head coach, it's not just about what's happened. It's about the plan going forward. And that's really where, the last head coach, Doug Peterson, that's really where he got fired was, Doug Peterson or Jeff Lurie even said Doug doesn't deserve to get fired, but it's not about the resume at that point. It's about the plan going forward. And I don't really know how they're going to link up in terms of the plan going forward.
Yeah. No, it's interesting how in some ways history is repeating, but I mean, we'll see what
there
happens.
are a lot of similarities. Now, things obviously haven't gotten as bad this year as they were in 2020.
And they weren't as good last year as they were in 2017. Which, I mean, it all changes the equation.
It does.
I mean, that team was 4-10-1. This one's 11-5, 11-6, whatever they were. But
but I think the more recent results matter more than winning or losing the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah. No question. It's really one of the more fascinating periods in Eagles history. I mean, it used to be coaches got fired for going 6-10, 5-11, or in trouble. You had those conversations. Well, it's their third straight 4-win season. Things were different back then. We're better. We're going to make a change. Buddy Ryan got fired after 3 straight double-digit win seasons and making the playoffs 3 years in a row. Got fired after the third playoff loss in a row without a win. So that was interesting, and that was kind of similar. It was like the owner just was like, "There's no future here. It's not working," even though they had won 10 games that year. But this is I I'll have to look up and again, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because Dick hasn't been fired, and they might lose and he doesn't get fired. That's possible. They might win and he does get fired. That's not possible. But I'll have to look up the fastest any coach has been let go after reaching a Super Bowl or after 3 straight playoff appearances, because that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, not for these reasons, at least.
Yeah. Has a coach ever been fired after never having a season that he didn't reach the playoffs?
Like the one, and the only reason it's on my mind is because we saw recently Jimmy Jones get put into the Cowboys Ring of Honor. Like
Jimmy Johnson.
Who did I say?
Jimmy Johnson.
I combined Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Jones.
Jerry Johnson.
That's pretty funny. But that was more of an ego thing, right? Like that wasn't. Yeah. That wasn't based on results. That was based on the Eagles not being able to fit in the building.
Yeah.
This is different.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
But that's the one that came to my mind is successful coach moving on from a successful coach.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but I mean, that wasn't a firing either. That was more of a kind of mutual. Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, everything's mutual. Pete Carroll this week evolved to a new role, not coaching the football team. So
evolved to a new role.
Yeah. One of my favorite press release wordings ever.
I didn't read it. Is that what they said?
Yeah. He evolved to a new role.
That sounds very deep.
It does. Yeah. If I get fired, I want to evolve to no longer working here.
Well, when I read the press release, when that happens, I'll use that.
What do you think is the most likely outcome?
They get blown out.
Really?
That's just how I feel.
So, and continue that. They get blown out. What happens? Clean house?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because, and when's the last time they were competitive in a game?
Seattle.
They're competitive for 58 and a half minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But then they blew it. And I don't think that's any better than losing 27-10.
Oh, I don't either. You just asked the last time they were competitive.
Yeah. competitive for 60
I
minutes.
mean, the Christmas game, I guess they were competitive. They won, but
like the last time, like they looked like an elite team, like a good team. I mean, even Buffalo, they gave up a ton of points. It's.
Well, the thing is, like you look at the main people in the organization, like Jeff Lurie's not going anywhere. Howie Roseman's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. So, if this team is wildly disappointing, then Jalen's not going anywhere. The way player contracts work, so it has to be on the table. And it seems crazy to talk about, but if I'm Howie and I'm Jeffrey, and you're watching the last month. Do you think Howie is looking at this saying, man, I didn't put a good enough roster together?
No. He might be second guessing the Shaq Leonard move, but other than that, and a lot of those moves were by necessity, but no.
And like
they have
we can
roster.
Put some blame on him, but like overall, this is a good enough roster to be a competitive team.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think Howie and Jeff Lurie, when they meet, are like, wow, we won 11 games after, the year after a Super Bowl. I mean, I'm sure they have the history of the most wins by teams that lost the Super Bowl, and the Eagles are probably pretty high up on that list. But like you said, it's the way they got there. I mean, once you're 10-1, like the expectations change, and the expectation when you're 10-1 isn't that you're going to be a road wild card team, especially if if it doesn't go well Monday. Look, I don't want to be too negative. I think there's a chance they'll come out and play well and win the game. I mean, they're the better team.
On paper, for sure.
On paper, they're significantly the better team. Do you know the Eagles and Bucs have played more than any other two teams in history in the wild card round? I thought that was interesting.
I didn't know that.
And I looked it up. Yes, I did.
Well, I hope you looked it up if you're just going to say it.
Yeah, I made that up, actually.
What if we just found out one day all your stats are just made up?
Not all of them, but 86.55%. But I mean, they've got these teams have quite a history in the postseason, which some good. And Eagles beat them a couple times. But yeah, they got quite a history. They played a lot. And I mean, what's your sense? Do you feel like they're going to go down there and play well?
No, but I think they could still win. I think well is a relative term. I don't think they're going to flip a switch and turn into a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
I just don't have a lot of faith in that Bucs team either. I think it's not going to be a great game. It's going to be funny because it's on national TV. I think these might be the two worst teams in the NFC left right now.
Yeah, definitely playing. I mean, well, Tampa did win 4 of its last 5, something like that.
5 of its last 6.
5 of its last 6.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And it's like, I think the least likely.
But we talk about the Eagles having an opportunity. The Bucs almost blew their opportunity.
Yeah.
They won 9-0 against the Carolina team with nothing to play for, and they had 2 touchdowns called back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the one, I mean, it was called back. It wasn't a touchdown, but in any case, I think the least likely scenario for me is that they play well and lose. That would really complicate things. Like, then what do you do?
Well, I don't have faith that the Bucs are going to play that well.
Like, what if they lose 24-23? Then what?
Yeah, see, I don't know if
on a 60-yard field goal.
I don't think it all comes down to this game. I really don't.
I do.
I don't. I think that would be really short-sighted if you let a coaching tenure come down to one outcome.
But I do. I mean, I think that.
I think it can tip the scales. Like if it's a continuation, but if it's a continuation of embarrassing losses, by all means. But aside from that, I don't think you can let it tip the scales that much. It's one game. You have 3 years, and you have to talk about the future. Like I think that's a bigger part of this is if your goals for the future don't line up, if there are disagreements on how the coaching staff should be built, what the offense should look like, what the defense should look like, I think those are bigger structural problems than losing a game.
But if they go down there and win, then that tells me that Nick still has the team. His voice is still being heard. They still are willing to, win a game, do what it takes to win a game for him. I think that would tip the scales. Like if they win this game, no matter what happens from Seattle and on the rest of the regular season.
What if they play like crap and they win it?
Well, then it comes down to what they do against Detroit, or what they do in it.
Oh, you got me going to Detroit. Huh?
I don't know. Just threw that out there, but I don't think they're going to fire him if they win, no matter how they win.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy that we're here right now, and I feel like every morning I wake up and I go, "Is this really happening? Are we really about to talk about them potentially firing the coach again?"
Yeah, I mean, there's not many years where, like, a lot of off seasons you have a deep playoff run, a lot of off seasons you have a coaching search. There's not many where you could have both 4 days before the playoff game.
Where does this rank? You've covered a lot of seasons in just weirdness.
I don't like to rank things, me, but it's tied for sixth. No, it's up there. I mean, there's been a few, certainly going from 7-2 to 7-9 in 94. Buddy getting fired after third straight 10-win season in 90. So there's been some unusual ones.
The Eagles,
I mean,
always have some drama going on.
Like the way the Chip thing played out. At the end, I mean, season wasn't even over. They still had a game left.
Yeah, but I feel like that was expected.
But just the whole way it played out with the press conference and Howie returning to power, it was like something out of Star Wars. I mean, here comes just when you think Darth Vader's coming back, here comes Han Solo to the whoever the hell it is, I don't know, but it was just so much drama. So there's been a few end of season. Some craziness, certainly.
The 2020 season was certainly weird because it was, no one blames COVID more than the Philadelphia Eagles, but it was weird because of that. And then the culture they had built just eroded during that season.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that was all virtual. So it was just weird. Yeah. But this is up there. I mean, this is certainly. And I really do think a lot rests on how they play and the result Monday night. I really do. I mean,
it is fascinating.
Yeah.
It does. Look, I don't know how much will rest on it. It does feel pivotal, though.
Yeah. And that kind of adds another layer of drama. Like, Nick knows that. He's not, operating in a vacuum. The players know it. They know it's at stake.
Yeah. He's going to try to ignore it.
Yeah.
He knows it.
Yeah. Just all I'm worried about is today's practice, next rep.
Which I think is like what you have to try to do.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And it's also pivotal from the standpoint of like some of your veterans. We talked about that Cardinals game might have been the last home game for a lot of these guys, but Monday could be the last game we ever see Jason Kelce in an Eagles uniform.
Yeah.
Or Brandon Graham or Fletcher Cox.
Josiah Scott.
You think he'll be elevated for this one?
I don't know. Might need him. That's I was thinking about that.
I think Lane will definitely be back. He's the fourth guy who's been here 10 plus years, but those other three, we don't know.
Who's most likely to be back out of those three? I mean, obviously Kelce will be back if he wants to.
Of those three, I think Fletcher's
played really well.
He's been their best interior defensive lineman all year. Or at least not all year, but
the last 8 to 10 weeks he has. He's been their most consistent.
Sure.
Yeah.
He's shown me he can still play. I'd bring him back for a 1-year deal.
I would too.
Which is something I did not think. Each year I keep saying this is it for him, but he's playing fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I really respect that guy. And he's really taken his leadership to another level too.
Yeah, for a long time he was kind of in the shadow a little bit because they had like Malcolm was such a vocal leader on defense. But in the last few years he's stepped that part of his game up.
Yeah.
And he does it his way, which is cool. Like he's not super rah-rah, but he'll rein guys in. I thought it was really cool in the game where Reed Blankenship had the green dot. It was Fletcher calming him down on the sideline saying, "Hey, buddy, get these calls in before you're running back 15 yards."
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, he's very different in his leadership style, and even his comments post game, like he's been very pointed and very honest, very direct, and very and players hear what he says. I mean, everybody hears what Fletch says, and there's no platitudes coming from him like, "Oh, we're in the playoffs, we'll be fine." I mean, he's been around long enough to know the deal. I've been really impressed with him, both the way he's played and the way he's he's acted, and he's an all-time great Eagle. I mean, all those guys are, but yeah, I mean, I still think I kind of feel like Kelsey's not coming back.
I can't imagine this year's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
he's playing great.
He's playing great.
I mean, that might be a reason to come back. You're just playing great, and you're talking about walking away from $15 million if you come back. But
he told me a few years ago, he said, when I start waking up saying, "Oh, I got to go to work," that's when he said nothing else is going to matter.
Well, I can't imagine it's fun going to work right now.
I know.
What's the funniest outcome that we could see on Monday?
Funniest?
Yeah, I think it would be that the Eagles just blow them out, and they all in the locker room go, "See, we told you we were going to flip the switch."
Yeah, then they blame the media.
Yeah,
it's a well-known dynamic.
No one believed in us.
Yeah,
we believed in ourselves.
Yeah,
Dallas Goedert's going, "See, I told you we were sleepwalking into the playoffs."
Us against the world.
That would be the funniest outcome.
Yeah,
and then they go to San Francisco and just get their doors blown off anyway.
I mean, nothing would shock me.
Yeah,
honestly, nothing would surprise me with this team. What do you think's more likely? They blow out Tampa or they get blown out?
Ooh, they get blown out.
As a team, they beat by 14.
Yeah, you just look at it. Teams going two different directions right now.
Yeah,
it's tough to stop that momentum.
Yeah, momentum in reverse.
Yeah. All right, we'll talk about some of the matchups in just a minute here. The Road to Victory bus tour is back. Come rally around the birds with exclusive swag and special guests, plus a chance to win tickets to a future game presented by Ticketmaster. Go to NBC Sports Philadelphia.com for the full schedule, and hurry up while we know this podcast is out. The bus is out too. Go catch it. And then tonight, Rube, this is exciting. Eagles fans, don't miss the Eagles Playoff Live Q&A at Wicked Wolf. Meet us, NBC Sports Philadelphia's John Clark and the Hall of Famer Ray Didinger. Celebrate with special guests and exclusive giveaways from Philly favorites, including Duncan. We'll see you at the Eagles Playoffs Live Q&A this Thursday, presented by Toyota. My reminder thing this time popped up at the perfect time. That was great.
You got to get control of that thing.
I don't know how to. I talked about this before. We're on these work computers that I never log into except when we do the podcast from in the office. So it's just like reminding me about flights from 5 years ago.
Yeah, better safe than sorry.
All right. Matchups for this game.
Yeah.
You mentioned it. Two very different teams, but the Eagles handled them.
Yeah, I mean, they outgained it by 300 yards. They could have won by more than 14 points. It was probably Tampa's worst game, one of their worst games, one of the Eagles' best games. Mm-hmm. They did what they want. They ran the ball against the defense that really hasn't allowed much in the running game. They didn't give up anything to their offense, and they just had that game in command, start to finish. They did whatever they wanted, and they controlled the clock. They shut them down. They held them under 200 yards. It was like, see how much of that they saved for Monday.
Yeah, go back and watch that Week 3 game just to remember what it was like when the Eagles were good.
Maybe watch it at 8:20 on Monday and pretend that it's live.
I like that. That's a good idea. Like, I thought it was nighttime. Oh, no, it was a Monday night game. It was a Monday night game. That's perfect. It works out great.
Yeah, people come in the room. Oh, Eagles are up 10-0. Oh, yeah. Great.
I like that. All right. Let's go through some of these matchups when the Eagles are on offense. I think the key one to me is Jalen Hurts and really the entire offensive coaching staff against Todd Bowles and that blitz. Not a good feeling going into it after watching Wink Martindale heat them up and the Eagles have no answers for it. We know Todd Bowles is going to send pressure.
Yeah, the Vikings, Giants, and Bucs are the three teams that blitz the most. And after the way the Eagles, and not just Jalen, but the coaching staff, everybody, O-line a little bit, I blitz them every snap. And they got to get them some answers. They got to get some hots. Jalen's got to be quicker with his decision making and get rid of the ball. I agree. That's the number one matchup. And there have been games where Jalen's been good against the blitz. I mean, we've seen it. He was pretty good against the blitz last year. But what he's got to avoid is just kind of extending the play so much that the pressure gets to him, and he tends to drift around in and out of the pocket and ends up either falling down or getting sacked or throwing the ball away. There's going to be opportunities to make plays.
Yeah.
And he's got to take advantage of them.
This is anecdotal, but how many times this year have we seen, overload blitz, sprint right, throw away?
50?
Yeah, it seems like a lot. And it's not all on him. Like, there was a few times where he had these vertical routes, and you're like, give him something to throw to.
Yeah.
You can't have these long developing plays. I think some of it's on him. I think a lot of it is on the coaching staff. Their only answer a lot of the year has been a quick screen game, which can be an answer to the blitz. But there are other answers, too. You have A.J. Brown, pretty good in the middle of the field. You can utilize that. You have Dallas Goedert. You have ways. You have different blitz beaters that they don't seem to use as much as they should. And you can also run the ball, too.
Yeah. Tampa's tough to run against, but they did it as well as anybody the first meeting. Really, to me, it's just a matter of recognizing things. It's all mental. I mean, the plays are there to be made much of the time. So he's got to be better. Brian Johnson's got to be better. The O-line's got to be better. Stout's got to be better. There, I said it.
Nick's got to be better.
Nick's got to be better more than anything.
And the game plan, you got to give him outs.
Because you know what they're going to do.
75% of his dropbacks in week 3, the Bucs blitzed him. So I looked this up. The Bucs are obviously one of the highest percentage teams in the league. That was their highest blitz percentage all year.
Really?
Yeah. And it's not new. We saw that.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, we saw that in 2021 in the playoff game.
Yeah.
How disappointing would it be if 2 years later they're back in the same round against the same team and the same thing beats them?
In the same stadium. I know. I was thinking about that. It would be such a symbolic, symbolic message that they just haven't. I mean, they got to a Super Bowl in between, so that did happen.
Good.
Can't pretend that didn't happen.
And it wasn't even fluky. Like, you can convince me that 2017 was a little fluky. They got some luck. Last year was not fluky. They just had the best team and they romped everyone.
Yeah. What happened? I should write a piece, 10 things that happened. No, I did that already. But anyway, getting back to the point at hand.
Do you ever, are you like, everything is 10, and I understand 10 is like the number.
Yeah.
Do you ever want to just like 11 things?
This one goes to 11. Things. Spinal Tap, this one goes to 11.
Yeah, I got you.
They're doing a sequel.
You're so proud of yourself when you get a pop culture reference.
It wasn't that. It's that you didn't seem to get the reference.
I got it.
I was a little concerned. They're making a sequel to Spinal Tap.
Jim Schwartz once had a really good Spinal Tap reference.
He did. Remember that?
About drummers. What was it about? Nichols?
It was like we've been through more slot corners than the Spinal Tap drummers. Yeah. That's my favorite quote of all time.
He also said, you do enough dumbass things, pretty soon you're going to be labeled as a dumbass.
He did say that.
That was a good one.
Remember who he was talking about?
Nigel
Prattle. I liked when Jim would come out and just start talking about the 78 Orioles.
I did not like that because that meant he was filibustering and not answering our questions.
Like Dave McNally or Pat Dobson.
But Jim, I asked about third down defense, so if we could get back to that.
Third down defense, he ends up talking about Dave McNally for 20 minutes. Anyway, that's the thing. They know what the Bucs are going to do. So that kind of should give them a little advantage. They're going to bring it.
Yeah. You mentioned the run game. Eagles ran all over them. And it wasn't even just like the Eagles got a lead and ran. I mean, they ran against Vita Vea and a really good run defense, 201 yards, the most the Bucs have given up in a single game all year. DeAndre Swift had 130. He hasn't gone over 100 since then. And they controlled the clock. I mean, that's not always the way you want to do it. And certainly this team wants to hit explosives. They don't really care much about time of possession a lot of times, but they held the ball for over 38 minutes in that game.
Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering if 200-yard games is the fewest ever by an Eagle with 1,000 rushing yards. But Deuce had one of his 3,000-yard seasons. He had 100-yard game. But yeah, A, will they try to run the ball? And B, will they have success doing it? And
Swift will be fresh.
Swift didn't play Sunday.
Hopefully he's not sick anymore. That'd be a long illness.
I think Gainwell's going to have a role.
Well, he's had a role all year.
No, a role. Like
a bigger role?
Yeah. He's rested as well. Like he's looked good the last month or so.
He was one of the few players who looked good in week 18.
Yeah. And, he played well in the postseason last year.
Playoff Kenny.
Yeah. So
in the one game. Really in the Giants game.
Yeah, really in one game against a terrible team. But, if they can run it and commit to it a little bit, doesn't have to be 50-50, but just if it's there, do it.
Yeah, that's kind of what makes this game fascinating to me, because the Eagles were able to run on them in week 3, but you look at this Bucs team, they give up a lot through the air. 29th ranked pass defense in the league, but the Eagles are a little banged up. They have A.J. Brown coming off the knee injury, Devontae Smith coming off the ankle, and a quarterback with a messed up finger.
Yeah, that's something we haven't even mentioned, but like, how's that going to affect his throwing? I don't know.
We won't know that until Monday night, because he's not going to tell us. We're not going to see enough at practice. No one else is going to tell us.
Yeah. No, you're right. Well, we talked to him today. Maybe he'll go
really
into great detail.
Break down his injuries for us.
It's the first time for everything. Yeah. He doesn't like talking about injuries.
I've noticed that.
Or a bunch of anything, really. But yeah, that'll be something to keep an eye on. And he didn't throw the ball with a lot of zip after it happened.
It was gross.
Yeah, it was. I wish they.
I don't like seeing body parts in places they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, he wasn't really zipping it. Even Nick said, I think on Monday, like it's going to swell up. I mean, it's like I was surprised he didn't have ice on it. Maybe it wouldn't have helped, but you would think it would reduce the swelling.
You might have right after.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see Marcus Mariota out there.
That would not be good.
That would not be ideal. So
the one guy in that secondary to watch out for is Antoine Winfield, who to me is having one of the best seasons of any defensive back in the league. He's been unreal.
I voted for him for All Pro, right?
I don't know. Why are you asking me who you voted for?
You've read my team more recently than me.
I did.
I did vote for him.
Okay, good. He deserves it. He was fantastic this year.
Yeah. Yeah, and their defense is, I mean, this is not a, they've had some really, really good defense. This is not a great defense. They're a good defense. They do some things well.
They have good players. They fit the scheme. They don't have great pass rushers.
Yeah.
So that's nice, but they blitz a ton.
Yeah. Yeah. So
they generate pressure that way.
But you can score. You can score points. I don't know if they can score points, but you can score points.
Yeah. Unless you're the Panthers.
They didn't score points.
They didn't score points. Yeah. All right. You want to flip sides?
Yeah.
I think.
I thought you wanted me to sit over there. Sorry.
When the Bucs are on the field, their offense, it starts with the receivers: Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, even Trey Palmer, the rookie, who's super fast.
Yeah,
that's concerning against this Eagles secondary that's kind of been a disaster for a lot of the year. The good news is Slay should be back for this game, but he also hasn't played in a month.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
I think so too.
I mean, the layoff's not going to hurt him. I don't worry about that. But really, nobody in that secondary has really played consistently well, and it's scary.
I'm scared about Bradbury.
Sure.
I mean, in this game, they're going to find him.
Yeah.
And we've seen in recent weeks them slide him inside in sub packages and had, Eli Ricks outside, but that was when Keely Ringo was starting in place of Slay. I think that might be Keely's job.
Could be.
You got to play him. I don't think they're going to take Bradbury off the field, but I think you got to try to hide him a little bit. You can't have him one-on-one outside with one of these corners or one of these receivers. The problem is these guys will go inside. They can find him anywhere.
Yeah. They both play inside?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Godwin more, but.
Yeah. There's no way around it. It's good to have Slay back, though. I mean, that's going to make a big difference. He's been okay this year. Not
Slay?
Yeah. He's been fine.
I think he's been good.
I think he's been up to his Pro Bowl standard, but he's been good.
Yeah.
He's been their best D-back.
I would say he's certainly still an above average cornerback.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But he's not that 5-time Pro Bowler.
Maybe not, but he's no one else is playing well back there. So
It's true.
It might not all be on him either.
No, that's true. Man, they could use a big play from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we
haven't talked about Avante much since he's been back. He's showing some roughs.
Yeah. Well, and that's to be expected. I mean, he's played more than I anticipated he would coming back from 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take a while.
Well, how would you handle? So they've run a lot of 3 safety packages, and now you're without Sidney Brown, who's done for the year. Would you play Avante some at safety? I think I would, because
you don't really have a lot of options.
Yeah, well, it's like it's tough
safeties.
to find 11 guys you want on the field, because you don't want more linebackers on the field, and in the secondary you're kind of limited. But I think your best bet is not to put Tristan McCollum on the field. I think it's to put Avante back, and you have Bradley Roby or Eli Ricks in the slot at that point. Especially even if you're in dime, you can have Bradbury and an Eli Ricks or a Bradley Roby inside.
Yeah, this is scary.
I mean, you're trying to get your best 11 out there. I don't know who they are.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know if they have 11.
That's not good. And that brings us to the linebackers against Rachaad White, who isn't a great running back, but he does catch the ball out of the backfield. And we've seen he's no Saquon, but just thinking about that Saquon in motion wheel route from last week, Rachaad White's not that good, but he can eat up these linebackers for sure.
Yeah, I mean, who can't? He's like a poor man's Saquon. I mean, he's not a great runner, but he had him. I mean, 1,000 yards isn't a lot these days, but
ended up with like 980. I think his average was 3.6.
Yeah,
not great.
But the way this team, Matt Patricia was trying to tell us that they improved against the run because the Giants averaged 3.6 yards a carry. I'm not buying it. I'll believe it. I'll believe it if I see it on Monday night. But how many catches did White had? 64 catches for over 500 yards.
Yeah, he was their third receiver this year, basically.
He's a better receiver than runner. Got in the end zone a lot. And 9 touchdowns. He's a tough runner. And I mean, they got some weapons.
Now, the good news is Baker Mayfield's getting him the football.
Yeah.
And he's not very good, and he's banged up.
He is banged up. He has best year with his 4th team. 28 touchdowns, 10
he kind of is what he is.
I agree, but
I'm not saying he can't beat this team, but
against this pass defense, 28 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Not bad. Completed 64% of his passes.
Yeah.
Good year for him. And they did score. I mean, you look at the teams they beat. I mean, gosh, they beat the Vikings in the opener. They beat the Bears, the Saints, the Titans, Panthers twice, Falcons, Packers is a good win at Lambeau. Jacksonville, who was falling apart at that point, and then the Panthers again. I mean,
yeah, it's a little scary being in that division and looking at how bad their numbers are, knowing that they had to face all those teams twice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fascinating matchup.
3rd straight division title for the Bucs, though.
Yeah, how about that? And I think I mentioned this the other day. Todd Bowles has never won a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a really good defensive coach. I don't think he's a great head coach. And I was looking at this. I think I put this in my observations this morning. See if I can find this. Baker Mayfield, listen to the quarterbacks who've beaten the Eagles in the last 20 years in the playoffs. Drew Brees 3 times, Tom Brady twice, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Kurt Warner, Russell Wilson once. And the only surefire Hall of Famer in the last 20 years to beat him was Tony Romo, who at that point was playing a pretty high level. So, I mean, if Baker Mayfield beats him, he's probably the worst quarterback to beat him in a playoff game since Brad Johnson along the Tampa lines. They haven't lost to bad quarterbacks, so that's something to keep an eye on.
Okay. And then my last matchup in this game is the Eagles pass rush. I mean, they just can't get home. and it's been bad.
It's not all about the sacks, Dave.
Yeah. Well, even the pressure has dried up. So even if you don't want to use that metric, it's by most metrics, they've been much worse in the second half of the year than they were even in the first half of the year, and certainly worse than they were last season. Hassan Reddick has an ideal matchup in this game against Luke Goedeke, but you got to do it.
Yeah.
And he's a part of the secondary now. So
maybe he's your third safety net, safety look.
If that happens again, I know it's not the biggest problem with this team.
Yeah.
He can't drop back as much as he's dropping.
Yeah, I don't know how many times it was Sunday. Did you? I haven't looked.
I don't know, but anecdotally, it was too much.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny because I get that when you're in a 5-man, you're going to have to drop someone on occasion. And you're in the 5-man because you think you can't stop the run without it.
Yeah.
I would go with a 4-man front. And if they run you out of it, they run you out of it. But I can't live in that 5-man front anymore. If you do, maybe you can like early in the year, they were doing this. They would walk up Zach Cunningham, and he kind of looks like an edge rusher anyway. He's long and super lanky. Like you can walk him up at times and give a 5-man look and then drop. Like seeing Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick try to live in space in zone coverage is very frustrating.
Yeah, you're right. It's not the biggest issue with the team, but it is confounding. I'm just going to try to find out how many times he dropped back. So I keep getting the wrong page on here. Just talk. I don't understand. Defensive grades chart. Say something.
This is where you tell me to talk, but you haven't stopped talking. So I don't know where to get to jump in.
Defensive grades chart. Maybe it's there. Defensive grades chart. What? Where do they break down? Anyway, I'll find it.
Okay. All right. You want to take a break and then we'll talk about some coaching stuff on the other side?
Yeah. You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
Celebrity cook Steve Martorano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martorano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations at Martorano's Prime on Open Table. Let's talk about some coaching stuff. Brian Johnson. Head coaching candidate Brian Johnson. What do you make of that?
I think his reputation is probably better around the league than maybe it is in Philly. I don't know. I think he got
Gannon 2.0.
He got a lot of no. I mean, look, Gannon was a good coach here. I mean, that was more personal, I think, than performance related.
I'm just saying from the perspective, but it's certainly that he was more well thought of outside the city than in the city.
Yeah, I guess there's a similarity, but I think his relationship. I think Jalen's performance last year is probably why he's getting an interview.
By the way, Jordan Schultz from Bleacher Report says the Titans are requesting to interview him too.
Interesting. Now he can't interview until after the Bucs game. Yeah,
the first day would be January 17th, and that would have, if the Eagles advance, that would have to be a virtual interview.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Yeah, so 2 interviews for Brian Johnson. You think we'll see any for Matt Patricia? Not a lot of defensive coaches get interviews. So
is that the reason?
That's probably why.
It's kind of been a crazy week in the NFL in terms of coaches. I mean,
the Pete Carroll news, I was blown away by. I thought that would be.
Were you?
Yeah,
72 years old.
I mean, they're always good. They're always competitive.
I was more surprised by the Vrabel news.
Yeah, that was really surprising.
Who are you going to get better than Mike Vrabel?
Nobody.
Brian Johnson?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they have to go offensive coach. Like, that's maybe the thing they're thinking. But Mike Vrabel, a damn good coach.
Yeah.
To me, I know Belichick's out there too, but Mike Vrabel to me kind of vaults to the top of the pecking order. I know Ben Johnson's going to get a lot of love, but
yeah,
man, Vrabel's a good coach.
I agree. I always like Vrabel. The last 2 years they haven't been that good, but I mean, first 4 years they were over 500. He got to the AFC Championship game, right, in 19.
Yeah. AJ Brown's still a little bitter about losing that one.
Yeah. 54 and 45. Last 2 years, 13 and 21. But they were both surprising to me. Yeah.
What do you think is the appeal of Brian Johnson?
I was shocked Ron Rivera got fired. I didn't see that coming. What's the appeal of Brian Johnson?
Yeah.
I think it's just the way Jalen played last year. And, I mean, he wasn't awful this year. He wasn't up to last year. He wasn't bad. Still decent. Very good much of the year. I think that's the main thing. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't think he's a great coach. I don't think he's as bad as he looks sometimes, because I think a lot of what we see on the field isn't what he's dialing up.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he's gone either way next year?
I was thinking about that this morning. And we can. I'm sure we can agree that.
Well, it's funny. We talked to the coordinators yesterday, and Matt Patricia walked down. We're like, that might be the last time we talk to that guy.
Yeah, I wasn't even sure he was going to make it out. But he, I think Matt and Sean. I think everybody would agree. Maybe more the defensive staff. I wonder about like Rocker and Washburn. The D line is underachieved so much.
Mm-hmm. DJ Elliott's in his first year as linebackers coach. DK McDonald in his first year, as DB's coach.
Now we know Nick. Well, Nick might not be here either, but if Nick's here, I mean, he loves DK. I would think DK would be. I mean, they had a ton of injuries.
Back to IUP together.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think there'll be a lot of changes, but I think, man, I could see Brian Johnson being back.
Is there any validity to the idea that you don't want Jalen to have a third offensive coordinator in 3 years?
I don't think it matters that much.
Okay.
I think.
Well, we talk so much about continuity.
I know
with Nick and with Shane from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah, I know we
haven't really talked about it much. Now he's regressed a little bit in this year under Brian Johnson, so I understand.
I think it's most important to have the right person.
Okay.
I mean, I think it helped to have Shane for 2 years because he was Shane. I mean, if it's a guy that it's not going well, I don't think there's a benefit of having him back. So, I don't think Brian's as bad as he can look sometimes, but I don't think he's great either.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's struggled to find his groove in Nick's offense.
Yeah.
As a play caller.
Yeah, and I think it's a really tough thing to do. It's kind of like you have Matt Patricia calling a defense that was built by Sean Desai, and you have Brian Johnson calling an offense that was built by Nick Sirianni. Yeah,
it's funny because the offensive coordinator job here is attractive for that reason. You get to call plays, which doesn't normally happen under an offensive head coach.
Yeah.
The downside is you're kind of limited in what you can call because it's not this, the structure of the offense is not what you've built.
Right.
And if you're like, if what the scheme is does not directly correlate to what you think a scheme should look like, then it probably is tough.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the case. And I know they say it's collaborative, but it's Nick's offense.
Somebody, I mean, collaborative is a great word, but somebody is making every decision.
Yeah. That's the thing. The Eagles love the word collaborative. Someone's got to make decisions.
Well, they sat in a room together and they came up with the word collaborative.
I like that. Looking at the vacant jobs right now, there are 8 of them.
Wow.
Panthers, Titans, Raiders, Chargers, Falcons, Seahawks, Commanders, Patriots. What do you think is the most attractive job? If you were the top coach on the market, where would you want to go?
Same again.
Panthers, Titans, Raiders, Chargers, Falcons, Seahawks, Commanders, Patriots.
Maybe the Raiders.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think they have a pretty good roster.
I think they're in some salary cap hell.
Yeah.
I don't think they have the draft picks coming.
Yeah. I mean, I like what Antonio Pierce did. I don't know if he's a candidate. Is he a candidate down there?
Yeah, he's a strong candidate. Players certainly seem to want him. And he got another coaching interview request.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I think Titans. I could be wrong about that.
Titans definitely it would be the other one.
I don't know how these national reporters keep all this straight. So-and-so is requested to talk to this guy and this. Like, I get confused by all this. Got to have like a spreadsheet.
I'm sure I'm not going to say that, but yeah. Here's a question. If Nick does get fired, what sort of job does he have next year? Would somebody bring him in as an OC? Maybe. If he doesn't call plays?
Well, he would probably call plays at that point.
He's not very good at it.
Yeah. But
is Larry Karras retired?
For the sake of fairness, he was trying to call plays as a head coach when he had a lot of other responsibilities.
Yeah, that's true.
So theoretically, he might be better if that was his job on game day.
Theoretically. Yeah.
Sure. We don't know that.
We don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. Wonder about a lot of things.
I think the commander's job is actually enticing. You're going to have a high draft pick. You're probably going to get your quarterback. You have a new owner who is going to spend money finally.
Yeah.
And the expectations are so low. If you're just, competent, you're going to look pretty good there.
Well, they just won a playoff game in 2005 at Tampa. Who was the last Washington quarterback to win a playoff game?
Is this a trivia question or are you asking?
No, I'm just looking it up. It was Mark Brunell.
I like the Mark Brunell.
He went 7 for 15 for 41 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception, and he won.
Good lefty quarterback.
Not many of them.
Not many. Tua's the only starter in the league, right?
Tua's been disappointing. How many?
Well, that team's kind of falling apart. They're super injured right now, too.
Washington won that game with 120 net yards of offense, 25 net passing yards.
What year was that?
That was 05.
We're just going to go through this box score from a game in 2005?
That was the last time Washington won a playoff game.
Okay.
Raymond James Stadium.
I like Raymond James Stadium, by the way.
I do, too.
It's aged pretty well.
Yeah.
It still holds up. It's a good stadium. It's not great. You can tell it's older, but
their old stadium was a dump. It's in the exact same place. I don't know. I guess it's right next to it because you can't build it in the same place. What if anyone's ever done that? You take the one down piece by piece and start building a new one.
You do
it. You do that.
I don't know if you can do that.
They still have the pirate ship there in the end zone?
Yeah, it's great.
I love the pirate ship.
They shoot off that stupid cannon every time I have a live hit. I jump about 3 feet off the ground.
I'll be looking forward to that Monday night.
That's all we have coaching wise. All the Chargers job is nice if you like the quarterback.
I like the quarterback. Okay.
I've been big on Herbert. He has not lived up to my expectations, but if you're a coach, you think you can fix anyone.
Well, who do we know who is a former Chargers coach who likes working with quarterbacks? Nick would take the job as long as they move back to San Diego. Anyway.
And Nick Saban retired. Throw that into a crazy week.
I saw, I don't follow college football very closely, as you know.
Well, he was the coach at Alabama.
I do know that.
Okay.
I do know that he coached there 17 years, and every 4-year player he ever had won at least one national title.
It's crazy.
Which is crazy. And he won a national title at LSU, apparently.
Yes. He was not born at Alabama.
I did not know that.
Last thing here today before we wrap this up, the NFLPA does their own all-pro team, which I find really cool. It gives players a voice to make their own history, kind of, because all-pro stuff and Pro Bowl stuff, as much as it seems silly when it comes out at times, it's like that stuff matters when you're talking about legacy, when you're talking about money and contracts, and when you're talking about the Hall of Fame. Like, yeah, those honors matter. So it's cool that the NFLPA does it now and players vote. And the way it works is that players vote. They started this last year. Players vote for their own position groups, and then the position group they directly compete against. So like corners vote for receivers, and
the Pro Bowl is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You don't vote for your own. You only vote for the opposite side.
But that's only a third of the voting.
Yeah,
players.
In theory.
You're really tinfoil hatting on this Pro Bowl voting.
But but anyway, that's out already. The APL Pro team, which goes back to like the 1920s or 30s,
which is like that's what, when you hear All Pro, when people just say All Pro, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, that comes out tomorrow, and this is my second year as a voter.
I do want to mention though the NFLPA Pro Bowl team, Eagles had two guys, Jason Kelsey at center, Lane Johnson at right tackle. They only had two receivers on their team, so it was CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek. Yeah, they pretty much have to be 1 and 2. Although if you told me about week 10, I would have said AJ would have been in there. But yeah, no, I because of all those things you said, I mean, I take it really seriously. I do a lot of research. This your second year as a voter?
Second year as a voter. And, you know, we do the MVP and we vote for Coach of the Year, Defensive Player, Defensive Rookie, Assistant Coach of the Year, all that stuff. And I keep like I have a file on my computer. I move guys around and move coaches around. Oh, you know, I have McDaniel as my number 3 guy and Coach of the Year. Oh, they just lost to the Bills. I'm moving down number 4. I'm just kind of always, I just take it really seriously because there's a lot at stake for these guys, and I wouldn't do it if I was going to do a half-assed job of it. So I take it seriously, and I try really hard to get it right. And some of them are. We were talking the other day. Some of these were so hard. A few positions this year, but
what was the hard? You don't tell me who you picked, but what was like the hardest position?
Honestly, it was right tackle with Penei Sewell and Lane.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that made it harder was because I know Lane. I've known Lane for 10 years, and I think the world of him. So you can't let that affect I've never met Penei Sewell in my life. But like there's a lot of – what makes it easier is there's a lot of analytics sites out there that really help for every position. I mean, there's long snapper analytics out there. Mm-hmm. And then each team mails you detailed like breakdowns of every player's season who's a possible All-Pro, and you learn a lot about them. And you know, I look up how they did against the best players they faced and all that stuff. Yeah, and then you just do what you think is right. So I enjoy it, but it's
the one that would trip me up this year is edge rusher, because I think there are 3 guys who are All Pros. And I don't know. And any two of them could be. You have Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, and Micah Parsons. Like, I don't. Gosh.
2 of those were my first team.
Yeah.
One was on my side. And we do a second team as well.
Yeah. It's like, but all 3 of those guys deserve it. I don't know how you pick.
Yeah.
Those ones would keep me up at night.
I think we talked about that particular one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think our ballots I believe, are public after the team comes out.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, I think so. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And, you know,
what do you stress more about, the All-Pro or like the award voting?
I think the All-Pro. Yeah, because the awards are pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, I guess so. Like everyone knows Lamar's going to win MVP.
Yeah. Oh, I've left him off my ballot. Wait, let's see if I can.
Britton Covey.
But yeah, he's going to win it. But I mean, week 16, he was like 3rd.
Yeah.
You know, Purdy was in the lead for a while. Dak was in the lead for a while. It's like every time I put somebody up at the top, they would like throw 3 interceptions. In Purdy's case, it was 4. But yeah, it's definitely and some of the positions, you know, like O-line, and like I talked to a couple players, you know, a couple guys in the Eagles locker room to get their sense of opposing players.
That's good.
But
it's funny though, as much as I love the NFLPA doing one, I think it gets a little overrated how much players know about other players across the league.
It's so true.
Just because they're so hyper focused on their upcoming opponent that like if you might not know what the heck's going on a team that you don't play that year.
Yeah.
Like you watch it in passing, but you're not studying it like you do the opponents you play week in, week out.
You know, the NFL Films guys, they were in the locker room last week or 2 weeks ago with their top. They were asking players to pick their top 10 players in the league or top 20 or something. Yeah.
So for the NFL 100, they give them it's basically an empty sheet of paper with 20 lines, and you're supposed to put the 20 best players.
Yeah. So I was actually standing next to a player. I won't mention his name, but he's stumped and he's looking at it and he's like, who's a good cornerback? Like, I don't have any quarterbacks on here. I was like, oh, Deron Bland's pretty good. He had 5 pick sixes this year. Oh, okay. He had 9 interceptions?
Yeah.
Say, okay, he writes it down. But you're right. They don't follow. And like if a guy had a really good game against them, they automatically think he's one of the best, even though he might just been his only good game of the year.
You beat me? Oh, you're pretty good.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the team. And if Kelsey does make it, which, why wouldn't he? It'll be 6 all-pro first
There are
teams.
other good centers in the league, but I think he's going to roll with that one.
Yeah, I'm the kid from the Lions. Ragnow's good.
Creed Humphrey's good.
Creed Humphrey. Those are the 3, I guess, top 3 guys. But, I mean, that Hall of Fame, resume for Jason just keeps filling up.
And there's only one thing he could do to lose eligibility, and he won't do it.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that, but it got me some run on their podcast.
Yeah, you can go check out the New Heights podcast around the 4-minute mark if you're curious.
Yeah, and
they need us to help them.
Travis ripped me a little bit for deleting the tweet, but he didn't understand why I deleted it, even though I explained it to Jason. And then Jason started talking about it, and Travis interrupted him and just changed the subject. But whatever, it's okay.
You got to shake it off. All right. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast.
Is that the only Taylor Swift song you know?
No, I know some.
Oh, yeah.
That just fit the joke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe. Wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button, subscribe there as well. In a bit of a lavender haze. So we'll end this podcast. Real quick, Rube. Prediction?
Bucs.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick the Bucs too. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles win, but I can't pick them right now.
I can't either. I can't in good conscience pick them.
Yeah. We'll see. It should be fun though. I'm excited for a playoff game. Hope everyone else is too. We'll talk to you after the game ends, middle of the night podcast before I take a flight back to Philly. Final words?
Enjoy the weekend. We got football Saturday, football Sunday, and then wait around all day Monday.
All right. Take care, everyone. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.